Hello, yeah. Uh, we'll do it the live orchestra way. We'll straight away go to the works that I write. Uh, First thing that I will read out is a poem from my book, Winter Poems. It's titled The Death Rattle Clan. They forgot to put my body on fire. On freshly chopped logs of wood, on oil cracking and boiling. They forgot the charm of cotton ball plugs, the sight of wetted white petals of fecund flowers, the absent-minded twirl of smoke chains, incense sticks, the sonorous trail of holy hymns, crackling sounds of earthen pots, and above all, the communal mourning around the corpse. Instead, they hurled me down inside a pit, laboriously excavated dark and deep, and instantaneously covered it up with fast-setting slurry, with a slate of hands that can be defeated only by mystic magicians at work. So I existed there frosted miles below, from where you were waging your philosophical wars on trains against commuters struggling to reach their office on time, commissioning ecstatic cocaine soirees on yachts and rafts, executing orgies with strangers on a plane, stealing antiquity from private museums of Novio billionaires. For you had told me once, I will blow up my life, indoctrinating me with the scent of your body and introducing me to the nucleus of this explosive club, Death Rattle Clan. What holds me here is an intricate web of undefined silence and darkness so pure in form, in this marsh of soil, water, plant roots, and rotting flesh. You worry sometimes, don't you, struggling in sleep? Do I remember your face and touch as I crossed over the perimeter of life? Do I know that your face is one among their faces? Do I remember all their faces as distinctly as I should? Do I remember our plot of blowing up our lives? Might I end up sharing it with a fellow corpse? Remembering and forgetting are complex phenomena even otherwise, more so after you have crossed the gate. Sometimes nowadays I will to laugh at our words. Words crafted out of beliefs, mostly non-beliefs, yet preached with so much intensity, precision and timing. A way of time passing for all of us at this explosive club, Death Rattle Clan. Well, the second poem is from the same book. It's an untitled poem. This black girl in black short skirts and black flap collar top swam in the sea like a lethal fish, eerie silence all about her. I watched her from the scorching shore. Then she ran along miles through the rubber woods, almost crazy, dancing to Dido songs. I chased her panting for air. Through my apartment's eastern window, I saw her steel razor in hand, foaming her dying dad's head and then shaving off like a skilled barber. She hardly talked to anybody in the community, smoked wills and chains. This petite black girl one day went to the terrace of her tower, shoved off her clothes and stood naked in the moonshine looking up in the sky. And then, as I adjusted my binoculars well, found beads of shining teardrops streaming down her cheeks. This is a tiny story from the book Random Subterranean Mosaic 2012-2018, Time Frozen in Myriad Thoughts. This tiny story was written for my daughter, Krishno and Krishna Koli. Krishno's daughter, Krishna Koli, was diagnosed with a fully grown wisdom tooth deep inside her right gum. This was, of course, causing her a lot of pain and suffering, especially while eating. The experienced dentist with sophisticated machines all around him suggested immediate surgery, extraction of the otherwise invisible tooth by cutting through the gum. So the operation was organized in 2 days, having started a course of amoxicillin. Krishna requested the doctor and his assistant to give the tooth back after the surgery, having cleaned it and cleared it of all flesh and blood. The surgery went fine and Krishna Koli's wound healed within a few days. What Krishna got back was a crystalline tooth, sparkling and chiseled like a tiny speck of aquiline cut quartzite. Krishna Koli asked Krishna, "What will you do with this, Baba?" Krishna replied in a reflective mode, "This was a part of you till a few days ago. I will make an amulet with the tooth as the pendant and wear it around my neck. You will always be close to me this way, even when you are away from me. Like during your higher education or while you are working or exploring distant lands." Krishna Koli hugged Krishna in a tight embrace, and both father and daughter cried for some time. The next one is also a tiny story from the same book. The tiny story is titled Pobitrobabu and Parushuram. Pobitrobabu recounted this experience of his to me in his wood panel study on the New Year Eve of 2017. Until 4 years ago, he would regularly visit a small eatery on an extended branch of Sutter Street on Saturday evenings to eat a small meal of chicken steak on plate with sauteed vegetables and French fries and hot bread rolls with butter. He would park his BMW in the parking area along the MLA hostel because he wanted to take a little walk, chat with Parushuram, a street beggar whom he happened to meet by chance one rainy evening when he was, instead of finding a shelter, persistently begging for some change from Pobitrobabu. His doggedness attracted Pobitrobabu because he appreciated doggedness in every profession. Pobitrobabu loved dogs and doggedness in human character. One evening, Pobitrobabu was feeling happiness spilling inside him. He had actually signed a very profitable contract for his company after long and painstaking rounds of negotiations. When he met Parushuram that evening, he was looking patronizingly towards him, and he said with affection and warmth, "Tell me, Parushuram, one wish you have that I can fulfill." Parushuram replied immediately, "Sir, I want to see the wonders of Kolkata in your air-conditioned car. The street walkers will be sweating off like hell, but you, your chauffeur, and I will be delightfully cold in your sleek ship. Sir, only for an hour." So Pobitrobabu, having had his steak, took him around for 2 hours and not 1 hour as was requested by Parushuram, setting the car temperature at 18 degrees Celsius. On a very hot and sultry monsoon late evening, watching the delights of National Museum, Victoria Memorial, Race Course, National Library, Second Hooghly Bridge, and Khidirpur Dockyard, well, or from outside, sitting within the chilled confines of Pobitrobabu's BMW. Next Saturday, when Pobitrobabu returned, he did not find Parushuram around. So he inquired about him with the other beggars. They said the wretched old man had died 2 days back on the street, coughing blood and reeling under constant fever and throbbing chest pain caused due to pneumonia. Pobitrobabu was thunderstruck and never returned to Southern Street area ever. This is a non-fiction tiny short piece from the same book titled Albums. One of the finest recollections of my late teenage years is my visits to relatives and homes of family friends along with my parents. My interests were twofold: food and family albums. I would always carry a lens surreptitiously with me on such visits. In a corner, I would sit with the pile of snacks and sweetmeats that would inevitably be offered to me, along with a stack of family albums that would be brought out of cupboards at my innocent and nagging requests. The albums would emit a mysterious fragrance which made me dizzy. I would then go through the photographs one by one, very slowly, observing the enlarged, minutest details with my lens. An earring, an amulet, facial gestures, navel, eyes and breasts of women, a smile, a grimace, bellies and crotches of men of different shapes and sizes, carpets, furniture, cutlery, lampshades, how people looked at each other, glances et al., embraces, resemblances, disputes, fans, wiring, and so many other things. I have revealed many mysteries during such long hours of private observational sessions: veiled threats, extramarital affairs, family mutinies, people desperately hiding their ruined lives, including impoverishment, attraction of luscious bodies, made-up beauties, moods of melancholia, anger, anxiety, anguish, happiness, nostalgia, and so many other things. Today, in the age of social media, when people are aggressively selling their children because they fetch more likes and love reacts, their late parents, they also fetch more likes and sad reacts and love reacts. Their lovers, their spouses, their families, their houses, their gardens, their acquisitions by uploading their multifarious photographs and images day after day, night after night. I sometimes feel the mystery and Sufiana of family albums are gone, and my recollections of my late teenage years are from my past life. Another collateral death of the postmodern times. I'm not sure what this piece, which genre this piece falls into, but this is titled as Rumbling One. Art, which is said to follow life, needs a plot for comprehensibility. Whereas life itself does not have a fixed plot, implicitly oscillating patterns although, life has no genre, art is categorized as per genre. Life has no audience, art needs audience. Sometimes more, sometimes less, sometimes none. Life's events have consequences. Art has hardly any consequence, as it is, like most other commodities, appropriated by the powerful for commercial consumption by who can pay. If art had any collective consequence, why would there be so much hostility, violence, bigotry, and wars all around us? But art does impact individual men and women, at times very strongly with consequences. We run through life and art back and forth and confuse dreams with reality. Without serious literary art, we cannot understand our own individual lives. I knew a father and a son. The mother left them both for greener pastures. The father was a sincere, hard-working man. He had amassed a bit of wealth, thinking this might come in handy, lest hard times should fall upon his son after he was gone. The son, in the meantime, had developed a bit of a temper. He was good in his studies and was cut out for a bright career. In between, he fell in love with a chestnut-colored girl in his college who was somewhat of a sly bitch. After the first few months of stormy courtship was over, the girl became disinterested in the boy and started cheating on him left, right, and center. She was caught one day red-handed by the bloodshot boy, and immediately he knew he was going to kill her. The next morning, he killed her with a sledgehammer in her bed. The father was keeping a track of his temperamental son since the time he had got wind of him having fallen in love with an attractive girl. Yet, he could not stop his son from committing the murder. What he did instead was erase all the clues in the process that led the suspicion to his son, including managing and handling witnesses. As fate would have it, in this continuing battle to erase the old and implant fresh and confusing leads, he ended up implicating himself in the gruesome murder. He was arrested in the end. In fact, he surrendered without any resistance. But what stuck at the core of the father's heart was that his son deserted him during this time, and he never sided with his father thereafter. He started living a separate life. The father ended up doing a strange act. He confessed to having killed the girl. When the question of motive surfaced, he told the judge that he was actually in love with the girl, who in turn loved his son, and in a fit of jealous rage and having failed to attract the attention of the girl, he committed the crime. The judge gave him a life sentence, to which he was visibly delighted. The above is a reportage of the main events of the story. Could it be made into a novel or a play or a movie? It will certainly become very different from the reportage, yet would throw light on many questions surrounding the story, but would depend on the insight and imagination of the artist. The issue is, the whole story happened without any retake, cut, editing, or redrafting as it would have happened in art. One of the key challenges in art is to capture the unpredictability of life without creating too many made-up coincidences. I will read out two more small pieces. Actually, this is a poem which was written long back. This is contained in my book, Frosted Glass. The name of the poem is Face and the Bookcase. I saw my face in a bookcase, the skin parched from burning and even melting at places. Queries leapt inside my mind like flowers of spring. Where are the books in the bookcase? What is the point at which human skin melts? Then I saw ants red and green eating into my face in the bookcase and thick chunks of wood. In the morning, I saw my face in the mirror. The face was the same like it always was. I went to the bookcase. The books were gone. Those were books collected day by day. Those were books of suffering and pain. Those were books shared with lovers of various races and times. I sat down feeling empty and drained out. I looked at the bookcase with intent and frown. It resembled a cave abandoned and gone like a mother's womb. Will I fit inside the bookcase and become another book in time like a child at play, happy and gay, while the world ends in the fury of winds and waves and my delinquent mother searches her road in ancient caves? This is a poem titled Cafe Cali. Cafe Cali is a wasting hole at the end of town. It is a den of kings and queens without a crown. It is a place of pale blue light, smoke, rummy and lust. Here kings and queens go on till they go bust. This is a place I visited on a rainy, damp night with a red kite flying in my head and willing to fight. A slogan on the kite in black said, "Life is a perpetual loss." Something happened as I entered this hole. I really don't know what. I gulped glass after glass of cheap sour wine as I sensed my intestines burning, grating on charcoal fire. I was overwhelmed by the sight of this creamy woman dancing on her toes lonely in a swarthy pot. Tumor-infested goons with bloodshot eyes cheering her up. But hell, she was looking at me really with an indecipherable signal in her eyes. Later, when I was gulping gallons of that uncouth wine, almost on the verge of crying, she came to me still dancing, looked now inside my tired eyes and whispered in my ears, "You remember me, darling? Do you remember me, darling? I am Zeenat. We made love on a rocking boat by an endless coast. For once I thought I might puke and ruin all my chances of winning a hand. But then Zeenat, holding my trembling hands, declared in a raunchy voice to the boss of the table, 'This boy is mine. His losses are mine. Get going, you dirty fellas, while we catch up with time.' Cafe Cali is a wasting hole with a large terrace blooming up on its head, opening up to a vast cauldron of heavenly bodies and dreams. Zeenat and I spent some time on this terrace, remembering and forgetting our days from an earlier life when we were man and wife. Somewhere in the distance, the music was playing, the wine was flowing, the cards kept falling. Zeenat and I by then were sailing on a lighted boat in the sky that sheltered this eternal wasting hole named Cafe Cali. I'll take the liberty of reading out one last piece from this book. It's a prose piece. I'll read only a single chapter of 2 pages from it, which also contains a small poem, how poetry can be infused into prose. This is an example. I don't know whether it's a very bright example or not. This is chapter 9 of the story, The Last Plunge. A few days back, Rahul visited a remote mountain station covered with cedar, sinar, maple and deodar trees. He stayed in a small cottage surrounded by brightly colored wildflowers. The sunshine was pale. The sky was a mixture of colors, ultramarine and gray. At night, he walked through the dimly lit alleys, searching for something, but he could not remember what he sought. He was perplexed and vexed. During one of his nocturnal expeditions, he came to a playground lit on all sides. It was crowded with people sitting in zigzag rows, looking attentively at a raised podium where a play was being enacted by a group of young, energetic men and women dressed in strange, colorful clothes. He could see that the play was serious in content, but it was entertaining too. Once the play was over, a serious-looking gentleman in traditional mountain clothes announced in a deep baritone, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the last part of our program. We have proudly present before you a woman who survived death in the most infamous epidemic that ravaged the eastern parts of our country a few years back. She is presently under rigorous medical investigation by the National Institute of Virology. Doctors and specialists believe she could be holding secrets in her blood, secrets dealing with life and death. The medical fraternity is spellbound by the way she has defied death. She is a poet of great merit and has agreed to read out one of her earliest poems. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Rekha Dattagupta." A few seconds later, Rahul saw a small woman on stage. She wore a white sari with a cobalt blue embroidered border. She had large black eyes set in a beautiful face. She looked at the audience almost reluctantly for some time and then began in a low, soft voice. "There was a man who was in love with me. This was a long time ago. While I was deeply moved by his silent love, I was helpless. I was already engaged to another man who was a friend since my college days. However, I was so touched by this man who loved me silently that I followed his life closely. A few years later, when I was already settled in my married life with 2 sons and a creative career, I wrote a poem titled Missing Rahul. Ladies and gentlemen, I will read out this poem to you now." Rekha paused briefly and then recited the poem. "This mask will go away this year. That mask will go away that year." These are the words Rahul's ma remembers Rahul had said when he left home 2 years back. Where has Rahul gone 2 years ago, never to come back home? His ma says, "Rahul did not talk to me after those words. Between this year and that year, there are other years. Between this mask and that mask, there are other masks. Between years and masks, Rahul has held the sense of his ma's bosom, the simmering shadow of a gun, Nanu's fragile fingers, the yellowing photograph of Rupa who never came back after making it in Tinseltown. Ramamashima's spasms between his legs, the Krishnachura tree where they played hide and seek, fried malpuas dipped in jelly on a cloudy autumn afternoon. And then, tired of holding all this, Rahul withdrew his hand one night and let matters fly and fall. I could not meet Rahul even in oblivion. One evening, as I opened my email box, I found a message from him that goes like this: Nanu, you believe the sky is blue? I believe the sky is blue. But Nanu, sky is space, and space has no color. When the masks are gone, the man does not exist for you. You do not see him, though he is breathing down your neck, only silently, unrelenting space falling from within the cups of your palms. Once the poem was over, there was a huge round of applause, and everyone got up to gather around Rekha to ask her how she had survived the epidemic. Rahul moved out of the area dazed. He walked, immersed in his haphazard thoughts, till he reached the edge of a deep valley, which in the darkness of the night looked like an expansive gorge opening its secret doors to the center of the earth. He was suddenly taken over by an overwhelming desire to feel the depth of the gorge. He jumped like a thunderbolt, Rekha's voice ringing softly in his ears. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I need any introduction.